The US has launched an investigation into controversial CIA interrogation methods. A new unit to question terror suspects is also being established, and some prisoner abuse cases are reportedly being reopened. Let's get more from RT's Priya Sridhar in Washington, D.C. Hi there, Priya. So, over to you.
Thanks. Well, the Attorney General has announced that a federal prosecutor will be investigating the CIA's interrogation tactics. Now, the CIA has been linked to a lot of questionable activity in recent days, including using members of Blackwater to assassinate top al-Qaeda leaders. Now, with all eyes on the CIA, many believe that we should also check out what was going on with top American officials who may have had a hand in creating these policies. Well, joining me to discuss this is Doug Bandow, Senior Fellow at the Cato Institute. Doug, thanks so much for joining me.
Happy to be on.
First of all, can you tell me, what do you think should be done regarding these top policymakers?
Well, their role should be investigated. It's really very hard to blame interrogators at the bottom if what they've done is gotten guidance from the military or guidance from the CIA or from the Justice Department to adopt these policies. So we need to find out, where did that guidance come from and how high did that go? The evidence is that these issues were discussed within the top reaches of the White House, including the Vice President's staff, perhaps. These are issues then that should be exposed for the American people.
And why do you think the Obama administration hasn't attempted to prosecute people from the Bush team?
Well, I think the president is very concerned about mounting what would appear to some people to be a partisan witch hunt. I think that he doesn't want to get embroiled in a fight over the Bush administration policies when he's trying to push his own agenda forward. So he's very nervous about this. On the other hand, if you believe in the rule of law, and I do in America, you have to be prepared to hold high political officials accountable for their actions, and not just people at the bottom.
Now, the Bush administration has denied any wrongdoing when it comes to all these torture allegations, but others say that there is sufficient evidence that they took part in some sort of illegal activity. Is there a way to retroactively go back and find evidence and prosecute them?
Well, of course. I think the evidence is very strong that some of the practices that were engaged in were torture and therefore violated American law. So we need to find out what those practices were and who approved them, and then they could be prosecuted under the relevant statute. Now, the president may decide not to initiate prosecutions, but at the very least we need to investigate, expose this, and have a discussion about what's happened in America.
And what's the difference between investigating an institution like the CIA as opposed to members of the Bush administration?
Well, you can have a special prosecutor could investigate both. The difference is the CIA, of course, is a spy agency. This is an agency where I think you have to be much more careful in terms of what you expose, how you go about dealing with classified practices and information. Looking at the White House, looking at the Vice President, the President's offices, looking at the Justice Department, these are officials who are much more in the public view. Their decision-making processes should be more exposed to the people. I think it's easier to look at their conduct.
Now, I know that there have been investigations into the Bush administration before, but I know that you claim that they've been ignored. How so? Well,
the thing is, for example, the Senate Armed Services Committee did its own investigation and came up with evidence of malpractice on the part of the Bush administration. But again, that looks like a political thing. I think we need to have a genuine legal investigation which asks, were the laws violated, and if so, should action be taken? We haven't had anything like that, and that's what we need, an impartial legal investigation.
And when it comes to times of war, what exactly is the power hierarchy? Who is in charge of what, and how can we hold people accountable for things?
Well, the president has operational control. He's the commander-in-chief. But Congress is entitled to set the rules of the game. The U.S. Constitution gives Congress the power to set the rules of the law of war. The Constitution says the Congress creates the military. The Congress decides on going to war. So, in fact, Congress can set ground rules which include whether or not you're able to torture. The president has an obligation to follow those. He can't be lawless.
Well, as the CIA continues to be investigated, there will be a lot of questions that are raised as to how much the Bush administration really knew when it came to this. But for now, back to you in Moscow.
All right, Priya, thank you very much indeed.